Hi, I'm Jim Clark, Visual Arts Manager here at Hopkins Center for the Arts. I'm speaking with Jeremy Iggers about the group exhibition, Iran Today, Photographs by Minnesota Travelers. Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
What can you tell us about the origins of this show?
Well, if we go back really far, I was the restaurant critic for the Star Tribune for many years, and I've been fascinated by Iran for at least 20 years. I think it probably started once when I visited an Iranian restaurant and then got to know the owners and was just fascinated by the people and the culture. A couple of years later, in 2001, in the aftermath of 9/11, I persuaded my editors at the Star Tribune to send me to Iran. And it was just one of the most fascinating places I'd ever been. And I dreamed for years after that of returning someday. And I was finally able to do that after I retired. I went in 2016, and I started going every year. And I got the idea that it would be great if more Americans could visit Iran. And I feel like many of the impressions that people get of Iran from the media are very distorted, and I wanted Americans to have a chance to see for themselves. So in 2019, finally, I started organizing tours. I created a little website called IranToursForAmericans.com and got the word out that I was leading tours. And so I went twice in 2019, once in April and then in November. And in November, everybody had a cell phone along and everybody was taking photos, and I thought it would be a great idea if we could cull the best of those photos and see if anybody wanted to have a show. And we're very grateful to the Hopkins Center for the Arts for agreeing to do it.
And the participants in the tour, do they think of themselves as photographers?
I don't think so for the most part. I think they're people who have curiosity and love to travel, and but no, none of them are really. Some of them are quite good. They're all quite good, but no, they're not professionals. They're
sure. And the tours that you lead aren't specifically photography tours, but one could look at that way?
Well, the opportunities for photography in Iran are everywhere. The architecture is spectacular. The natural beauty is amazing. And people are very, very friendly and approachable. So there are subjects for photography everywhere you look. But no, we didn't really have a focus on photography. It was more on seeing how ordinary Iranians live and work and play.
Is it difficult for Americans to travel to Iran?
Well, a lot of people think it's impossible, and in fact, it's really not that difficult. Americans can only travel with an approved tour guide and a pre-approved itinerary, and it usually takes between a month and 2 months to get a visa, but beyond that, it's not that difficult. Your tour guide is supposed to kind of have you in sight at all times, but most of the guides that I've talked to are much more relaxed than that. So you have a certain amount of freedom to explore, and as I've said, people are very friendly. I think they welcome tourists. Unfortunately now, because of COVID, no tourists are coming in, but I think Iran will open up again eventually, and it's certainly not over-touristed, I'll say that for it. It's a wonderful place for anybody, but for Americans to explore.
Jeremy, is it fair to say that Iranian food was your entree into Iranian culture? It served as a gateway?
It certainly was a gateway. Back when I was the restaurant critic for the Star Tribune, I had to find something new to write about every week, and somebody tipped me off to a restaurant in downtown Minneapolis that had an Iranian menu, but you had to ask for it. And so we went to the restaurant, which was the Atlas Grill. It was unfortunately closed fairly recently. And I asked for the Iranian menu, and this big guy kind of strides out of the kitchen and says, "Who asked for the Iranian menu?" And turns out it was the chef, Abbas Shabazi, and we explained to them that as part of the evening's experience, we'd seen an Iranian film, which happened to be Gabe, which is one of the films that's showing at our Iranian Culture Festival this coming week. And he got very excited. He said, "That's my people." It's a film about the Bakhtiari tribes people. But at any rate, to get back to the food, he brought out just a feast for us. And that was, I think, my first introduction to Iranian food. All kinds of kebabs, all kinds of things with yogurt and different kinds of rices, and that's also actually been one of the highlights of my travel to Iran. Delicious food, and yeah, so but food was my entryway, yeah.
What do you think is the most significant difference in your mind between, say, how the media portrays Iran and how you've experienced it on these trips?
Well, I mean, one of the things is that I think that there are a couple of persistent images. One is that Iranians hate Americans, and what we found over and over again was just the opposite. People were very excited when they found out that we were Americans, and very, very warm and friendly towards us. The other thing is about the status of women, and that's a very complicated issue. The women are disadvantaged by the Islamic Republic in many ways, but they also play very strong roles in the society, in their families. More than half of college students are women, and so I think people come away with a much more nuanced picture of the role of Iranian women in the society.
Fascinating. The images on view in the show were wide-ranging in their subjects and the environments that they were presenting. Can you tell us a bit about geographically how wide-ranging your tours are?
Yes. Well, we started off in Tehran. And Tehran's not a particularly beautiful city, but it has some really remarkable architecture, and a beautiful bridge called the the Nature Bridge, which was designed by a woman architect who I believe was 26 years old at the time, and spans, I guess it goes across a highway, I think it is, but it spans 2 parks in Tehran. So we had everything from this very modern architecture. We also visited a shopping mall with more glass and marble than the Mall of America, and everything from that to beautiful mosques that were hundreds and hundreds of years old. So, and also geographically, the last part of the trip was in the Gulf of Hormuz on Hesham Island and Hormuz Island, which have these spectacular, I would call them lunar landscapes, just very unique, maybe more like the Grand Canyon than anything else, but hard to describe, but just a beautiful landscape and a different ethnic group there than in other parts of Iran.
This show is, I've enjoyed viewing this work for the last month here, and now that the show is closing, where else might our viewers see some of this work?
Well, I am going to bring some of the photos with me over to Landmark Center. Our big Twin Cities Iranian Culture Festival is going to be at the Landmark Center, with most of it focused on September 19th, and I'll have some of the photos with me. I'm hoping to have an updated virtual gallery of these photos that you'll be able to find on the Twin Cities Iranian Culture Festival website. It's a technology that displays photos as if you were in a real physical gallery. And so people should be able to see that. If they want to know more about tours to Iran, they can look for IranToursForAmericans.com, and some of the photos are also up there.
Excellent. Jeremy, thank you so much for sharing your work and the work of the tour group with our community.
And thanks again for hosting the show.